Michael Jackson was the greatest entertainer who ever lived. Millions of people idolized him. Every pop star since has tried to copy him. He was the standard. But here's a question almost nobody stops to ask. If the whole world worshipped Michael Jackson, then who did he worship? Because Michael had an idol too. One man he watched obsessively since before he could even read. One man whose every move he studied, copied, and chased for the rest of his life. And when Michael finally became a superstar himself, he still called this man his greatest inspiration. To his face, in front of the world, the king of pop had a king of his own. And you might not guess who it was. Let's get into it. And if you love the real story behind the legend, hit subscribe before we do. To understand this, you have to go back to the very beginning. Before Thriller, before the Jackson 5, before Michael Jackson was famous at all. Picture a little boy, no more than 5 or 6 years old, in Gary, Indiana. And picture his mother, Catherine, waking him up in the middle of the night. Not for an emergency. She'd wake him up, no matter what time it was, no matter what he was doing, for one reason: to put him in front of the television, because someone was on. And Catherine knew her son needed to see him. Michael described this himself years later. He said, quoting him directly, "My mother would wake me, no matter what time it was, if I was sleeping, no matter what I was doing, to watch the television to see the master at work." The master, that's what they called him in that house. And when little Michael saw this man move on that screen, something clicked that would shape the rest of his life. Michael said watching this performer left him mesmerized, completely hypnotized. He'd never seen anyone perform like this. And in that moment, as a tiny child, he made a decision. In his own words, "Right then and there, I knew that was exactly what I wanted to do for the rest of my life." The single most important decision Michael Jackson ever made, the decision to become a performer, was made on a living room floor, in the middle of the night, watching one man on TV. So who was he? It wasn't Elvis. It wasn't Fred Astaire, though Michael loved him too. It was James Brown, the godfather of soul. If you're younger, that name might not mean much to you. So here's why so much of the Michael Jackson you know actually came from this one man. James Brown was a force of nature on stage. The lightning-fast footwork, the splits, the spins, the way he'd drop to his knees, the famous routine where he'd collapse, get draped in a cape, throw it off, and keep going. James Brown didn't just sing, he detonated. And young Michael absorbed all of it, the dancing, the singing, even the mannerisms, and built them into his own act. Those slides, those spins, that explosive energy, so much of it traces straight back to James Brown. Michael just pushed it further than anyone thought possible. And Michael never hid it. In 2003, at the BET Awards, he surprised Brown with a Lifetime Achievement Award. And standing right next to his hero, he said, "Nobody has influenced me more than this man right here. He was the one I looked up to more than any other entertainer." When Brown died in 2006, Michael spoke at his funeral and called him his greatest inspiration all over again. Here's what most people don't realize. James Brown was Michael's biggest idol, but he wasn't the only one. There were 2 other legends who shaped him just as personally, and their stories are just as fascinating. The first was Sammy Davis Jr. If James Brown taught Michael how to move, Sammy Davis Jr. showed him what it meant to be a total entertainer. Sammy could sing, dance, act, do impressions, command a room, all of it at the highest level. He was one of the first black superstars to truly break through in a segregated era, and he did it by being undeniable at everything. For Michael, Sammy was proof that an entertainer didn't have to be just a singer or just a dancer. He could be all of it at once. Michael deeply admired Sammy's versatility and his showmanship, and the two became genuine friends. Michael even performed emotional tributes to him, where James Brown gave Michael his fire. Sammy Davis Jr. gave him a blueprint for being a complete, all-around performer. And then there was Diana Ross. Now, Diana Ross wasn't a distant idol on a TV screen. She was right there in his life. When the Jackson 5 came up through Motown, Diana Ross essentially helped look after young Michael, becoming a mentor and almost a second mother to him. And Michael studied her constantly. He said it himself, "I used to just sit in the corner and watch the way she moved. She was art in motion." He learned an enormous amount about grace, about stage presence, about how to carry yourself as a star. just by watching Diana Ross up close. She shaped his elegance the same way James Brown shaped his energy. So Michael's genius wasn't an accident. It was three legends, combined and pushed further than any of them. James Brown's raw power, Sammy Davis Jr.'s all-around mastery, and Diana Ross's grace. So the answer to the question is this: the man the whole world idolized someone too. Above all, it was James Brown, but it was also Sammy Davis Jr. and Diana Ross, three icons who each gave him a piece of what made him the king of pop. And there's something genuinely moving in that, because it reminds you that even the greatest entertainer who ever lived started out as just a kid, studying his heroes, dreaming of being like them. Michael Jackson wasn't born the king of pop. He was made, in part, by a sleepless boy watching the masters at work and deciding right then that he would spend his whole life chasing that feeling. The king of pop had kings of his own, and he never once forgot it. So tell me in the comments, did you know who Michael looked up to? And who's the one artist that inspired you? If you want more stories behind the legend, hit subscribe, because there's a lot more coming.